Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. It's an engaging and enlightening talk show on life, relationships, and the business of life. Grab a cup of juice and just chill. Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. Live life. Live fully.
It's time to bring you yet another amazing episode. And now, welcome your host.
Good to have you on the show. This is Omobola Stephen, the podcast host of Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. We focus extensively on personal development and self-improvement topics, and we occasion expert and professionals who are adept in these topics who offer disruptive yet constructive mindset conversations that is going to move you from where you are to where you need to be. Personal development and self-improvement is a lifelong process that we must embrace in order for us to really live the life that we're truly meant to live in the side of eternity. I know that it can be very challenging embracing the changes that personal development and self-improvement brings along. But I tell you, if you can only give it the time and give it the effort, you're going to benefit at the end of the day if you don't give up. Today, I will be talking about leadership lessons from home and also to the workplace, and have an expert who's going to share this topic with me on the show. I have Doris Jackson-Shazier, who is a leadership coach and a people management consultant. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right. Thank you once again. I'm looking forward to a worthwhile time with you. Like I said earlier, we will be talking about leadership lessons from home to the workplace. So leadership begins at home, but how true is this assertion?
Sorry, say it again.
Yeah, the question is leadership begins at home, but really, how true is this assertion?
So I believe that, again, leadership begins at home, and it's so important to how we show up everywhere, the things that we experience at home or the way that we behave at home. I think that this subject it needs to be very important into the workforce. We have to show up one way. And what I find with a lot of women is that they exude leadership and in workplaces and think that it ends there, and then they have to kind of take off a certain hat in order to be someone different at home. And so I'm on a mission to help people understand that leadership in the home and in the workplace require the same type of strategies, and that you can use those strategies in both places. But it begins at home and then you work your way out.
Oh, really? Now, but how can we lead better at home?
Say it one more time.
How can we lead better at home?
So we lead better at home by really applying really good principles in role modeling. So the first one is self-leadership. So how do we govern ourselves? How do we gain control of our own emotions? And then how do we model that for the people that we're around? I think the other part is the differentiator, I believe. It's how we reward and recognize effort. Good leaders in the workplace and good leaders at home recognize effort, recognize when other people are trying and they're able to call that out. And they also know how to reward the behaviors that they want to continue to see. So if you're raising children or if you're in a marriage with your spouse, how do you respond in a way that allows that person to understand that this is what I like or this is how I want you to do it? But recognizing and the way you recognize and reward others is really important to leading in the home. And then also, I would say empathy, emotional intelligence. How do you relate to others is super important when you're leading in the home and also when you're leading in the workplace.
Okay, so leading in the home now, you talk about leading when you lead in your children, right? But you haven't addressed the aspect of leading your partner, right? Now, are we talking right from being the husband down to the wife or to the children? Are we following that pattern, or what are you trying to say?
So definitely in my home, it is God first, husband, then wife. And sometimes I see it as, my husband is the head, but I'm kind of like the neck. The neck helps turn the head. And I think that as women, we have a responsibility. We lead also. We lead in a different way from our male counterparts, but we are leaders as well. So there's a such thing as coaching up, and that means if you're in a work situation, you can lead from your position and help lead your boss. And as a wife position, you can lead from your position and help lead your husband. It's about how you role model. It's about how you demonstrate empathy, and it's about how you reward and recognize others in your home.
All right. Now, you said that we are leaders, but the thing is that how can you as a woman lead your husband? Now, in this aspect, you're seeing him as the boss in the house.
Yeah. So I don't think it's necessarily a boss in the house. I believe there's servant leadership. And servant leadership doesn't get caught up in title. It's not about ego. It's not about pride. It's about being of service to each other to help bring out the best potential of those around you. And so I don't have to lord over or manage my husband in order to help lead him. I lead him through love. I lead him through compassion. I lead him through understanding. I lead him by role modeling or treating him in ways that I would like to be treated. But there's so many ways to lead without lording or having a title as manager over someone.
But you know that that could be very challenging as a woman. But really, going forward, how is leadership shown in the workplace?
How is leadership shown in the workplace is the question?
Yeah.
Again, same way. I think that you can be a servant leader. There's been times where I've led my bosses in a way that did not challenge their authority, but in a way that allowed them to trust me and my advisement, and they held a higher position than me in the organization. So I believe, again, leadership is empathy. Leadership is how you recognize. Leadership is being a good listener. Leadership is recognizing people's potential and helping them to get there. And you can do that from just about any role that you're in.
And now, the question really, thank you for sharing that brilliant explanation. But now, to those who show that they are leader at work, is it possible for them to attain a leadership role?
I'm guessing the question is if you want to be a leader, how to go about doing it. And part of that is how do you advocate for yourself? Number one, you have to be good at your current job, but sometimes moving up to the next role of the job requires a different type of skill set. And what I find is people are really good at what they currently do, and they automatically assume that means they'll be good at the next level. Sometimes that's true, and sometimes that's not. When you go to the next level to where you're leading people, it's less about doing the specific job and more about your ability to lead people. So now, if you're in a role at work and you want to move into a leadership position, the first thing I would recommend you do is number one, make it known. Have a one-on-one conversation with the person who has the power in order to promote you so that it is clear and obvious what your desires are. Number two, build your leadership toolkit. Learn about leading people. You could be very good at the job, but if you don't understand how people think, how to lead people, how to create followership, then you will struggle when it's time to become a leader. So you have to build your leadership toolkit. The next thing I would recommend is good governance of your own emotions. Because when you're in a leadership position, you're responsible for other people. And when you cut, you can bleed on others. So if you don't understand how yourself, if you don't know who you are, if you don't have good emotional control, then you can affect a lot of people's lives if you're put in a leadership position.
All right, now in the workplace, I'd like to just tell her coach, or really let's look at this another perspective. Don't you think that one has to work their way to become a leader in the workplace? Or is this something that because you believe you have the innate capacity to be a leader, you can, have that conversation with someone who can help you to achieve that effort? Do you think it's something that automatic, or you have to work your way to, or earn your way to become a leader in the workplace?
I think it can happen both ways. I think it depends on your experience. So if you're working, depending on the level that you're at, and let's say you're trying to get to a director level or manager level at your workplace, If you're in a field that requires a lot of expertise of the job, you may just have to work your way up. Let's say it's construction, or the people that you're managing, you need, or in a medical field, the people that you're managing, you need to have expertise per se in what they're doing in order to manage them effectively. Then that may be the environment that you need to work your way up, because you will have personal mastery of the things that the people you're managing are doing. But then also there are roles that I don't believe you necessarily have to go through the ranks in order to get to the top. So in certain businesses and company, if I come in and because of my inherent knowledge of leadership in business, I can come into a company and come in at a director level role and not move up, because I'm coming with the years of experience of how to do business and how to manage people. And that's very important for that role. So I think the industry, um, would be the kind of important to whether that works or not. But I think there's two pathways. You can move through the ranks. The last company I worked for, I moved through the ranks, and I went from a store manager to a district manager to a regional director to a senior director of leadership development. So I moved up, and the mastery that I had of the first role helped me all the way up to the top. But now that I have that experience in managing people, yeah, sure, I could go to another company and use those 15 years of experience to land a leadership role there. So there's two pathways.
All right. Now let's talk about women. And well, I'd like us to talk about the common leadership challenges. You know, or you and I know that we have challenges of leadership stuff at home and also in the workplace.
Yeah.
Trying to struggle to, get your head out of the water. So what are some of the challenges women face?
Yeah, so I think it's hard for us as women leaders because number one, we deal with the challenges at work. Sometimes we're the only woman. I've experienced being the only woman, the only Black woman, the youngest woman, the only person with a child, the only person married. Like I've experienced those circumstances. And sometimes it feels lonely in leadership for women, especially Black women. And so we deal with microaggressions. We deal sometimes with tokenism. We deal with having the code switch. We deal with sometimes being seen, um, or being in the room, but not feeling like we have a voice. That we're kind of there for the photo op, but when we speak, no one's listening. So I think that there's a lot of challenges that come with being at work. And then there's the bias. There's people who, once they know you're a mom, they assume that, oh, she's a mom, so that's going to take up her time, or they just make assumptions about us. So I think for women in leadership, we struggle with being sometimes in male dominated spaces, and then we struggle sometimes with the label of motherhood being seen as something that holds us back, right? And then at home, now we deal with the balances of being a nurturing, available mom to my children and a wife to my spouse, while also having these demands, of my time with a career, or being a boss or being in charge of a bunch of people at work and coming home and knowing how to display humility, or submit to, leadership in our own homes. So we go through this internal battle. And one of the things that I do as a leadership coach is try and help women find that balance and let them know that it's about priority, and priorities change. 5 years ago, my priorities were a certain way because my kids were a certain age. And now they're a little bit different, and they'll be different, even more different 5 years from now. And so how do we give ourselves grace? How do we prioritize what's most important? And then align our actions with those things. But I think that, yeah, we face a lot of conflict when we're leaders in the workplace, and then we are leading families at home.
Tough work, you say, but I think for every woman out there, the struggle of trying to just get your head high above the water and trying to find balance is something that is really, really tough work to do. Do you have just one or two tips or strategies that you can provide for such a woman who is juggling between these conflicting yet important priorities between, being a leader at home and also being a leader in the workplace?
Yeah, the first bit of advice that I would give is prioritize. Prioritize. You can have it all, but you may not be able to have it all at the same time. So what is most important for you at that time in your life? And for me, I passed over promotions. I passed over certain things in certain seasons. I remember I was offered an opportunity and my daughter was in high school. And all my friends had told me, don't move a child while they're in high school. They'll hate you forever. And so I passed that opportunity because it was more important for me to give my child the type of environment they needed to thrive in their high school career than it was to have that promotion. I ended up getting that same promotion 2 years later. And but I didn't have to hurt my child in the process or uproot them in the process. So I would say prioritize. You can't have it all, but sometimes it doesn't happen at the same time. And then I think the other thing that's really, really important is give yourself grace. I think sometimes we're just too hard on ourselves. We're too hard on ourselves. We create this internal conflict, and we have to remember, what badge are we getting at the end of this? What are we really trying to accomplish? What matters the most? And my advice, if you're dealing with that type of conflict, you have to realize that who you are and what you do are two very different things. And once I was able to understand that, it was a game changer for me. Who I am are the titles that can't be taken away from me. And what I do are titles that I accumulate and I can pick up and put down. So yes, I've been the senior director of field leadership development. That's just what I do. That's not who I am. They're not going to put that in my obituary or on my tombstone that I was the senior director of field leadership development. But who I am is a mom. That can't be taken away from me. A wife, that won't be taken away from me. And so because of those things, it helps me to prioritize who I am and what I do, two different things. Understand that piece. Got to understand that, and it helps create balance.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. I know that's something, a really big topic on its own. We'll leave that for some other time. Thanks for that, Doris. And now to the new leaders who assume position in the workplace, what are some of the challenges they face and how do you think they can solve it?
So new leaders. Um, first, the new leaders in the workplace are coming from a different generation. So one of the things that you have to deal with being a new leader is kind of that generation gap or that difference in thinking. I was a person who started managing at about 20 years old. And so I was a very young leader. And so when I hear people, some of my clients, they say, oh, it's so hard for me to manage people older than me. And I'm like, I don't know it any different. My whole career, people have been older than me that I've had to manage. And so I think one of the things that leaders are challenged with is just the generational differences. And you have to come in with a certain level of empathy because guess what? You're on one side of the spectrum now, but if you're lucky, you'll get to where they are. So you meet people who are about to retire and they think differently about things. You'll meet the people who've been doing it for 20 years and they think differently about things. So now you come in and you're the new kid on the block. And I think sometimes young leaders or new leaders don't have an appreciation for those who have came before them. And I think if you can gain an appreciation for those who came before you and seek to understand, then it makes for a very soft landing. It prevents you from making some of the same mistakes that have already been made. You get the benefit of the experience of the people who have came before you if you come in with an open mind to learn from those before you. And I think the leaders that suffer are the ones that come in and they don't want to learn for the ones who have been there before them. So that
All right. So I like to talk about your new book. I've explored a bit about it, but I really want to, your book, Raising Justice. I really want us to explore a bit on that. And can you tell me a bit about it?
So, Raising Justice, I'm super proud of it. It's now available on Amazon, and it's the story of my motherhood journey. So this book it chronicles, my life as a 19-year-old first generation college student who finds myself pregnant. And it talks about these key moments and experiences and really the things that I've learned in motherhood over the last 20 years. And how I've come to now raise a 19-year-old college graduate. So, I mean, it's a full circle book. It's a good feel book. It's a book that I mean, you can read the book in a few hours. Honestly, it's like a weekend read. I didn't want it to be really long, but I really wanted to share with everyone just a testament to what God and hard work does. 19-year-old college student raising a 19-year-old college graduate. The book is also about um, little things that I think make a difference to the mother-daughter relationship. This you read in this book my attempt to parent my daughter in a way that I wasn't parented. And so I have a close relationship with her, but it's not about perfection. You hear about some of those imperfect moments and how I reflected as a parent and changed and adapted so that I didn't do things to her that may have been done to me. So it's a really good read. Again, it's a story of resilience and love and grace and forgiveness. And I'm happy to share it with the world.
Good to know. Thanks for sharing that. We would like to know how we can access the book, but really, I like you to share with my audience, if any, really, if you have any exciting news about aside the book project that you like to share with them, you think is going to be beneficial to them in the long run, you can do that now.
Oh, okay, awesome. So if you want to reach out to me and learn more about my motherhood journey and kind of what I'm doing as a coach, my website is dorisjackson.shazier.com. This September, my daughter, which the title Raising Justice, her name is Justice. Justice and I will be leading a mother-daughter podcast in which we will talk about just the conflict, the communication, the everything that happens with motherhood and daughterhood. And that's going to be out in September. It's just a series that will feature on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So it's a 5 series. So that's coming up in September. And I think it's going to be fun to see us talk as, a mother-daughter team, just talk about different elements and different things that are going on. So I'm excited about that series that's coming up.
Oh, absolutely. I hope that you can come to the show to share that with my audience. Prior to that, so we'll be excited to learn about that, Doris. Thank you once again. Do you have any parting word you'd like to share?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to share with your audience. I always appreciate that. And I want everyone to have a beautiful day. And I think in closing remarks, if you don't take away anything else from this episode, I want you to take away who you are and what you do are two different things.
Brilliant. Thanks for that inspiring line that you just shared with my audience. Once again, Doris Jackson-Shazier, you shared great insight with my audience, especially talking about leadership lessons from home to the workplace and from the workplace also to the home. Thank you for your time and also the valuable contributions you shared to the topic of discussion. Wish you best of luck once again, Doris. If you'd like to catch up with any missed episodes of the show, you can do so on any course promotion platforms or any podcast distribution platforms to come on the show. I need you to tune in for more transformative podcasts on Omobola Omobola Steve and talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doris. That was a great show we had.
No, that was really good.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you subscribe and leave us a review.